You were in a mental institution? Oh, God.
Cole, you were sent back to make some very important observations.
You could have made a real contribution. Helped to reclaim the planet.
As well as reducing your sentence.
The question is, Cole, do you want another chance?
Oh boy, it's a time travel podcast. My name is Nate, and he was volunteered to be the co-host. It's Brian Martin.
Hello, everybody.
Brian, it's a late night for me.
Already.
And
Already it's a late night.
I'm going to get my game face on, and we're going to record a podcast, and I am going to be entertaining.
You got your olives?
Fuck, I don't have any olives.
Ah, Christ.
I got some.
Guys, don't even bother listening to this one.
No, it's down to water and corn chips. I could break out some corn chips if I needed to.
Corn chips worse on the back end in terms of podcast editing.
Probably. Yeah, that's probably true. Plus, olives are a little funnier, I think.
Olives are inherently funny.
Yeah, olives, I think, are funnier than corn chips as far as foods go.
I do have something that I wanted to ask you if you had seen yet.
Okay.
Have you seen 765874 Unification yet?
Is this the Star Trek thing?
This is the Star Trek thing.
No, I've heard tale of it.
Yeah.
Is what I'd say. It's supposedly pretty good, and
It's very cool.
yeah.
It's really, really neat.
I don't know why my brain works the way that it does, but when I found out that it was silent, for some reason I lost interest.
No, okay, so
So-
it is largely silent. There is a little bit of dialogue in it, but it was made with the assistance of William Shatner
Okay.
and Sam Witwer, hero of all nerds everywhere.
You'll have to remind me.
Sam Witwer is the voice of Darth Maul in the
okay.
Star Wars animated shows. He was the voice of Darth Maul in Solo, a Star Wars story. He was on the American version of Being Human. He was on Battlestar Galactica.
Okay.
Sam Witwer portrays Kirk in this.
Oh.
Yeah, with a CG-enhanced
Right.
head, face. And the whole thing exists because, as fans of Star Trek probably know, the character of Spock, as portrayed by Leonard Nimoy, passed away
Off screen.
in real time as Leonard Nimoy passed away, right?
Right.
So it was acknowledged in Star Trek Beyond that Spock Prime had passed away. This happened off screen, and someone out there was like, wouldn't it have been fitting for Kirk to be there at the end?
A solar eclipse. The cosmic ballet goes on.
And that's what this short film is.
Okay.
And it's a silent film, but it appears that Kirk is plucked from the Nexus by Gary Mitchell, who was a character in the second pilot for the original series, Where No Man Has Gone Before.
Oh, interesting.
Kirk is then placed in a space with a bunch of other Vulcans, including, Nate, get this, Robin Curtis reprising her role as Lieutenant Saavik.
Okay.
And he then moves forward into this sort of portal kind of thing where he is reunited with Spock on Spock's deathbed.
Well, okay, you've sold me.
It is a powerful thing. I was blown away. Honestly, Michael Giacchino of the Abrams Star Trek movies and Lost, as we talked about last time,
Right.
did the score for this. Like, it's a legit thing.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The Nimoys are in on it. Again, William Shatner was involved in the production of it.
So do we consider it canonical?
Look, I absolutely do.
Okay.
I absolutely do. Given the pedigree of the people involved, given that Paramount was involved in this.
Okay,
Like, this
well
is
then,
an official
sure.
Star Trek production.
Okay.
It's got to be...
Okay.
But it's real special. And seeing Robin Curtis back as Saavik is really... I don't know. It strikes a chord, you know?
Yeah.
How we deal with death is at least as important as how we deal with life, wouldn't you say?
How long a thing is it?
It's about 8 minutes long.
8 minutes. Okay. All right. Well, I'll watch it before we record again.
And the effects are very neat. I read this thing with Tony Gilroy recently, who, was behind Rogue One, A Star Wars Story.
Mm-hmm.
And he mentioned that the technology that was used in that movie to make the digital Tarkin is completely obsolete. Like, it's not even that it's outmoded at this point. It's that technology isn't used at all now. And
probably a good thing because,
it's really Uncanny Valley-esque.
Yes.
And when you see this with Spock and Kirk, there's still... it's still a little Uncanny Valley.
Yeah.
But the margin has shrunk substantially.
Right.
It's very cool, man.
Very cool. I think the one, and it's probably not the same technology, there's a Back to the Future deepfake with RDJ and Tom Holland. Have you seen this?
I haven't seen that.
Yeah,
no.
It's pretty interesting. They do the scene we use as a stinger in our podcast here.
She didn't even look at him.
This is more serious than I thought. Apparently your mother is amorously infatuated with you instead of your father.
But yeah, that looks pretty good, but I'm sure it's the older technology because it's been around a bit.
Yeah, I don't know. The place to go to see the cutting edge tech when it comes to these sort of deep fakes is YouTube.
Yeah.
The advancements aren't being made by people at movie studios. The advancements are being made by Joe Schmoes in their basement.
Right. People creating things in order to get jobs.
Exactly. Yeah.
Making sizzle reels at home. Speaking of cutting edge, how old is the movie that we watched tonight?
What is that like? Speaking of people in their basements.
When did this movie come out?
That's hard to say. Well, it's not hard to say. There's an actual answer to that.
Right.
But it's funny because, Nate, did you see this movie when it was originally in theaters?
I did. And we've been talking about this particular episode for a long time.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, God, did this movie come out in like 1992? Was it 1993? I couldn't quite pinpoint.
I could only place an era, right?
Yeah, which is really funny considering the people behind the time travel kind of only place an era, too.
Yeah.
They have a really hard time hitting the mark.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's
with their
funny.
Time travel.
I saw this so long ago that the only thing I remembered about it was how good it was.
Yeah, like I remember really loving this.
Yes, exactly. And then when I started to watch it again, I realized I don't remember anything about this movie except Brad Pitt's butt.
There were definitely things I did not remember. There were things I did once I got in here and started digging in.
Yeah.
And there were things I didn't. Like the fact that Frank Gorshin is in this movie.
Yeah.
I am a man of few words, but a man of many riddles. So riddle me this. What is it that is always coming but never arrives?
Yeah.
The Riddler from the 60s Batman show shows up in a pretty substantial role.
A pivotal role, if not, well...
Yeah.
I saw that name in the credits as well. I was like, oh, I recognize that name.
Like, no shit.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of the reaction. Yeah.
I could probably record a whole podcast about the 60s Batman TV show.
Is there any time travel in that? Because
no, I don't think there was a time travel episode. But of the rogues gallery of villains on that show, Frank Gorshin's Riddler was always the top level for me. He was always my absolute favorite.
The Penguin, Mr. Freeze, the Joker, all masters of their craft, granted. But only I, have triumphed in ridding Gotham City's criminal kingdom of the dynamic duo.
Yeah.
Frank Gorshin is like a defining...
Yeah.
That is the Riddler to me. Kind of like how Julie Newmar is Catwoman to me.
Not Eartha Kitt?
From that, like... No, it's Julie Newmar all the way. Man, I could record a whole podcast about Julie Newmar.
There's a lot of podcasts you could record there, Brian.
Yeah, probably. Anyway, we're not talking about Batman 66 tonight, guys. We're talking about 12 Monkeys.
12 Monkeys, if you didn't put it all together. I think we started talking about this as soon as it became a bold new era. I think this was one of the first suggestions that we do.
Absolutely one of the first movies that came up as sort of benchmarks in time travel cinema.
Yeah.
1995, this movie came out. December of 1995.
Right.
So it was a Christmas movie. And I think that... And the movie makes no qualms about it. It is very clearly a Christmas movie, as evidenced by the opening scenes in the rundown department store that was vacated at Christmas time. Clearly, there's still a lot of signage up and everything. I was like, oh, Well, how about that?
Yeah.
It's a Christmas movie.
It's a Christmas movie. That means Bruce Willis is in several Christmas movies, at least 2 I can think of.
Got invited to the Christmas party by mistake. Who knew?
Mr. Christmas, right there. And he got this role after Terry Gilliam saw Die Hard.
Oh, really?
Where he's pulling the glass out of his feet.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was the scene. That was the scene that got him this role.
That's weird. What about that scene?
Willis improvised a lot of that scene.
Oh, okay.
And the emotion in it was part of what got him this gig.
Okay.
The humanity of Bruce Willis. And he's great in this.
Yeah.
12 Monkeys, written by David Peoples and his wife Janet Peoples. Now, David Peoples had previously written screenplays for, do you know?
No, I don't.
Blade Runner and Unforgiven.
Ooh, Unforgiven.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so big pedigree there.
Whoa, wait a minute. Doc, are you trying to tell me that my mother has got the hots for me?
Precisely.
What is 12 Monkeys about?
Based on a 1962 French short film called La Jetée.
Oh, yeah, I saw that in the credits, and I was like, what?
Yes.
Oh, it's based on a small... Yeah. I'm
La
actually pretty
Jetée
interested about that.
Is a 28-minute long film where a prisoner in post-World War III Paris is sent to the past and the future in hopes of finding the means to save their present. He goes into the past, falls in love, and witnesses his own death as a small child on La Jetée, which translates to the pier. It's like a dock, right? Instead of an airport. But they're all parts of the story that kind of made it into 12 Monkeys.
Yeah.
12 Monkeys, a bit dingier than La Jetée. Decades after a deadly virus decimated humanity, a team of scientists selects James Cole, portrayed by Bruce Willis, a prisoner being held in subterranean Philadelphia, to travel back in time and find an original unmutated sample of the virus to bring it back to the present. Unfortunately, the science is a little bit imperfect, and Cole overshoots his target of 1996, arriving instead in Baltimore in April of 1990. Now, Cole arrives as a naked man, raving about the end of the world, and he's quickly arrested and dropped off in a mental hospital, as was the style back in the 90s.
That's right.
And there he's put under the care of Dr. Catherine Rayleigh, played by Madeline Stowe. While at the facility, he also meets Jeffrey Goins, played by Brad Pitt, who sounds crazy for the 90s, but would today likely have a popular right-wing podcast. Cole attempts to warn many people about the impending apocalypse, but of course only sounds crazier every time he brings it up. Desperate to contact his own time, he begs to be allowed a phone call to a number set up to receive voicemails in the future. This is one of the coolest little things in the movie, I think.
Yeah, it is.
But having ended up in an earlier time than intended, the number is not yet working. Following an escape attempt, Cole vanishes and is pulled back into the future for a debrief. His handlers quiz him about a cryptic voicemail message they did receive on the message line, which placed the blame for the outbreak on an organization called the Army of the 12 Monkeys. After recognizing Jeffrey among photos of potential group members, Cole is sent back again, this time to locate the Army of the 12 Monkeys so a virus sample can be retrieved directly from them. After landing in 1996, quote, right on the money, which are the scientist's words, not mine, because Cole does in fact make a slight detour first. Cole again connects with Catherine and forces her to take him to Philadelphia for a fateful encounter at the estate of Dr. Leland Goins, played by Christopher fucking Plummer, folks.
Right.
He's a Nobel Prize-winning virologist, and guess what? Jeffrey's father. There, Jeffrey reveals that the entire idea for the virus stemmed from Cole's time in the mental hospital, and Cole begins to question his sanity, even as Catherine comes closer and closer to the truth that her former patient might not be crazy after all. And that's where I'm going to leave that synopsis.
Okay. That's an interesting dichotomy you're leaving it on, too. That was really one of the more interesting things about it, the way these two characters, their perspectives shift.
They're like ships in the night.
Yeah.
And they pass one another. Like, obviously, Catherine thinks Cole's crazy. Cole is like, no, you got to believe me. And then gradually, Cole becomes like this none of this makes any sense. Obviously, I'm nuts. And Catherine's like, no, here's a photo of you in World War One.
Yeah.
That was just one of the key elements I did remember from this movie.
Oh,
was
really?
The photograph.
I had forgotten that entirely. My takeaway from this movie back then was, wow, Brad Pitt really is a good actor.
Oh, yeah.
Telephone call. That's communication with the outside world. Doctor's discretion. Nah. Hey, all of these nuts could just make phone calls. It could spread. Insanity oozing through telephone cables, oozing to the ears of all these poor, sane people, infecting them. Wackos everywhere, plague of madness.
Come on, let's go.
In fact, very few, Jim, very few of us here are actually mentally ill. I'm not saying you're not mentally ill. For all I know, you're crazy as a loon.
That was the first time I kind of realized, this guy from Cool World was actually pretty good,
Cool World.
This place should be erased.
Hey, it's a living.
Cool World. Thelma and Louise, it's funny because he had gotten cast in this movie before the release of several of his major movies, like Seven and Interview with the Vampire.
Mm-hmm.
The things that kind of put Brad Pitt on the map. And then suddenly, by the time this comes out, Legends of the Fall, there's another one.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And Brad Pitt is like a serious actor at this point.
I remember thinking of him as the poor man's Tom Cruise back then. It was like, if Tom Cruise can't get this role, you give it to Brad Pitt. And
Can
now,
you believe that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, yeah. I mean, times have certainly changed. But
Sure.
my point being, my perception of Brad Pitt going into this was that. So when I saw his portrayal of not just another pretty boy and was like, wow, this guy can really act, it just kind of changed my mind about him entirely.
Yeah. And I'm glad you
Well-deserved.
mentioned that because, well, a couple things. One, in this movie, Brad Pitt is playing a character that is a version of a person we all knew in high school, I think. This sort of anti-establishment, kind of coked out dude who's just kind of ranting and raving.
Yeah.
Usually down by the art room.
I thought...
Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
You got this guy.
I thought it was fun that he wouldn't escape because he knew that eventually he'd get into one of those nice insane asylums.
Yeah.
He knew he was crazy. But
He's
he's
so
I'm
great.
not going to escape now. My dad's going to get me into one of those nice hospitals.
Because I would be crazy to escape. I have sent out word. I am all taken care of. I've managed to contact certain underlings, evil spirits, secretaries of secretaries, and other assorted minions who will contact my father. And when my father finds out I'm in this kind of place, he'll have them transfer me to one of those classy joints. Where they treat you properly, like a person, like a guest. With sheets and towels, like a big hotel with great drugs for all of us nutcase, lunatic, maniac devils.
He's so terrific, and the thing they do subtly with the contact lens, one eye looks fucking crazy. He's got Uncle Ruckus eyes from Boondocks, where one pupil is a little bit bigger than the other.
Oh, yeah, okay.
You know?
Yeah. I guess I didn't really notice that in the movie that they were doing something funny like that. But they're constantly darting back and forth, and he's really just pretty manic and a lot of fun watching him.
Do you know how rumor has it Terry Gilliam, of course, Terry Gilliam of Monty Python fame, who directed this movie, got that performance out of Pitt?
I don't know much about this movie at all, honestly.
He took away Brad Pitt's cigarettes. He would not allow Brad Pitt to smoke, and then he got that performance out of him.
Yeah? He does seem like a guy that's not all that mellow, for sure.
That's true.
Man.
So, the other thing that I'm glad you brought up there was kind of seeing this through a specific lens when you watch it initially versus when you experience it later. So this movie, you watch it and you suddenly realize, oh, wow, Brad Pitt's not just the stand-in actor that I thought he was based on Cool World. Cool World. He's actually got some chops.
Right.
And one of the themes of this movie is coming at a specific memory and realizing that the more experience you have and the farther along you get in your life, the more open to interpretation it might be. And your perception of what that memory is changes over time. And it's kind of explicitly drawn out. There's a scene where Cole and Catherine are at a movie theater laying low, and they're at a Hitchcock double feature, and they're watching Vertigo, which is also tapping into this sort of what is reality kind of vibe, right?
Right.
But they pretty much explicitly lay it out there because Bruce Willis starts talking about, I've seen this movie. I remember seeing this, but even his perception of the movie in real time as he's watching it seems to not jibe with what his recollection of it is.
I think I've seen this movie before. When I was a kid, I saw it on TV.
Don't talk.
I did see it before.
Oh, please.
Have you been here before?
Yes.
When?
I don't
When were you born?
recognize this.
Long ago.
Where?
What's the matter?
Tell me. Madeline, tell me.
No.
Madeline, tell
It's
me.
just like what's happening with us.
No, I can't tell you.
Like the past. The movie never changes. It can't change, but every time you see it, it seems different because you're different. You see different things.
Please don't ask.
If you can't change anything because it's already happened, you may as well smell the flowers.
What flowers?
Somewhere in the light.
It's an expression.
Something from Jonas.
And the reason I bring all that up is because when I saw this movie, I was like 15 when it came out. So I watched the movie as a 15-year-old. I didn't see it again for 10 years when the DVD was released. There was a special edition DVD that came out in 2005. And that's the copy I have on my shelf.
Oh, all right.
And then I don't think I've seen it since then.
Right.
So now I'm coming back to it almost a full 20 years later.
Right.
And every time I sit down and watch this movie, it kind of means something a little bit different to me.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting that the movie itself is trying to make a commentary on that while also explicitly subjecting you to the same themes.
I agree. I think that when I was first watching this, I was probably young enough that I didn't really understand it.
Okay.
I feel like I probably recognized it as a good movie, and it had time travel in it, you know, science fiction, and obviously the performances were great, but I'm wondering if maybe it didn't click with me or something. Because honestly, as I'm watching it this time, it was basically watching a whole brand new movie for me.
Sure.
And I feel like this is not what I remember the movie being like. Evidently, I remember absolutely nothing from what I saw. So I'm feeling like my perception of the movie itself was either way off or it impacted me so much differently at that age than it does watching it again.
There's a lot in here to keep up with, honestly. It's a tall ask for just about anybody to come into for the first time and just watch it cold turkey. I do think it improves the more you understand what's going on and how it all works, because it isn't till about the halfway point in the movie where you actually see how the time travel works.
Right. Like you actually get to see the time machine, quote unquote. Yeah.
Which I can't wait to talk about that thing.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. Wait till the end, folks.
But this movie doesn't hold your hand.
No,
really,
it doesn't.
You know?
But one of the things I do remember about watching it younger was this whole idea that is Bruce Willis crazy or not? But in this viewing, I never had that question in my mind. He was very clearly from the future. Like those things actually did happen. But it's very interesting the things that they tried to do, maybe hide it just a little bit. Like, oh, maybe he's crazy. When he first comes up onto the Earth's surface and he experiences the nature that has taken over Philadelphia, right? There's a lion and there's a bear and whatever. And then later in the movie, one of the things they try to use to make you assume that maybe he is crazy is there's a statue of a bear where there was an actual bear earlier in the movie. So it's like, oh, is he just like picturing this statue as a real bear and he's just a lunatic?
He sees the same rooftop.
The same rooftop.
That he sees the lion on.
Yeah.
And he hears the roar again.
Yeah, that scene. And then running into that one person in the hospital that recognizes himself as crazy for thinking he's from another planet.
It's a condition of mental divergence. I find myself on the planet Ogo, part of an intellectual elite, preparing to subjugate the barbarian hordes on Pluto. But even though this is a totally convincing reality for me in every way, nevertheless, Ogo is actually a construct of my psyche. I am mentally divergent. Are you also divergent, friend?
Right. Yeah.
You know, like he so calmly talks about the fact that I am definitely from this other planet. But you know what? I know that's not real. I'm not crazy. I just need to work on myself. And like this very logical, I understand that I'm crazy and I'm going to get a handle on that.
I love the crazy people in the asylum.
Yeah.
Oh, fun fact real quick. One of the people in the asylum is Turk from Scrubs.
Oh.
Appears as a mental patient in this movie.
Yeah. The only other one I wanted to add is that near the end of the movie, there's one of these people giving a speech out on a street corner.
The street preacher.
Yeah, the street preachers. And he points to Cole and says,
Dragons in their pleasant palaces. The seventh angel poured out his vial into the air, and there came you're one of us.
You know?
Yeah. And what does that mean? Right?
Yeah, at that point, you're thinking, wait, does that mean that Cole is crazy? Or that this dude and the homeless guy from earlier that yanked his own teeth out, yeah, are they also time travelers? Because apparently, once you're volunteered for this job, you could theoretically run into people that have also been volunteered for this job.
And he does. Explicitly, he runs into somebody he knows during World War I, right?
His
he runs
cellmate.
into Jose.
Yeah.
So, couple things here I do want to talk about. The big picture item here is the faultiness of memory that this movie deals with. And so what you're talking about with Cole and whether or not we believe he's crazy or whether he believes he's crazy, the most explicit representation of this sort of sliding scale of truth in the movie are the dreams and visions that Cole continuously has of this incident that happened to him as a small child where he watched somebody get gunned down in an airport terminal.
And it changes ever so slightly based on things that he's experiencing throughout the movie.
And it changes in ways both valid and invalid. Right? That's the trickiness of this, because some ways he's like, oh wait, I know who that person was now, and I know who this person was now, but like, no, he was right about one thing and wrong about
the other. Yeah.
So it comes into greater focus and is prone to more distortion based on the environmental feedback that he's getting. Whether it's the people that he's meeting or the conversations that he's having, it all kind of impacts his perception of what reality.
One of the big things, and I don't want to steer the conversation in the wrong place, but one of the big things that allows you to question reality is Gilliam's vision for the future. Because his vision for the future, Earth is ravaged by this virus, so the survivors of humanity have to go underground, right? And leave the virus and nature. And the imagery that we see of the future, the characters, the technology is just so off kilter.
When I found you. Congratulations.
During your interview while you were under the influence, you told us that you liked music.
This isn't a prison, James.
This is a hospital.
Just until you recover your equilibrium.
You're still a little disoriented.
It is a very stressful thing, time travel.
You stood up very well, considering.
You connected the army of the 12 monkeys with a world-famous virologist and his son.
Others will take over now.
We'll be back on the surface in a matter of months.
We'll retake the planet.
This is it, James. What you've been working for.
A full pardon.
You'll be out of here in no time. Women will want to get to know you.
It's Terry Gilliam, right? I mean, if you don't know Terry Gilliam, just kind of look up his kind of steampunk weird look that he does.
Yeah, like this is the man who brought us Time Bandits, Brazil. He brought us The Adventures of Baron Munchausen and Jabberwock. Like, I mean, it's wacky.
Yeah.
Guys. It's
right.
real wacky.
You know, something that would normally just be a monitor on a screen is like this spherical floating device with multiple screens on it in different sizes. For what purpose? Except to look weird, right?
You know, there was a lawsuit involved with that chair that he's like hoisted up into because some guy was like, you stole my design for this thing.
For a chair?
The chair
it lifts him up along the wall.
Way up and has the... Yeah. There was a whole lawsuit.
Again, another thing. Like, why does he need to be hoisted up on the wall in order for these people to talk to him, basically?
Right. Everything in this world seems designed to put you at ill ease.
Yeah, which is weird and wonderful. It's just so fun to look at.
Mm-hmm.
All the little dials and like watch gears and stuff under glass.
It's a really fully realized world, which is remarkable because you ultimately don't see much of the future.
That's what I was about to say. Well, fully realized.
You see cages, you see tech departments,
right,
and you see the actual time travel mechanism.
Well, they have such little space that their jail is just cages stacked on top of cages, you know?
Yeah.
Feels like a tip of an iceberg situation. When you say like fully realized, it's like, yes, there's a definite vision for this, but you're only getting
You have a lot of questions. There's way more to know.
Yeah, there's lots of questions. And part of that is, as little as they show, makes it all kind of disjointed and surreal in a way that makes you think this appears imaginary, right? So as you start to question whether Cole is telling the truth, and this is his perception of what really reality is, look how weird that is in comparison to what we understand 1996 to be. And when he's in 1996, Gilliam does enough to just make 1996 boring, normal 1996. You know, like
even though that also is kind of weird and off-putting, like what we see of 1996.
It's wonderfully shot, but it's definitely recognizable as reality. Whereas the future, which is a reality to our protagonist, is so weird to us that it does give you the opportunity to be like, well, yeah, maybe he is a little nuts.
Maybe he is nuts.
Because if he's envisioning it this way, if that's part of his mind, then... But that's like the big piece to me that just made this so wonderful to watch.
That discomfort, it's not just the aesthetic design. Did you notice how many shots in this movie were Dutch angle shots?
Dutch angles and a lot of obscured foreground.
Yes.
Right? Like cameras coming up over something that's blocking your view or shooting through something. And yes, often at an angle, right? I mean, that's in reality and in the future.
If you were to watch this in a movie theater and come out and you are struggling to maintain balance, there's a real reason for that. It's because the movie is shot in a way that you can never quite be sure where the horizon is.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's incredibly effective. The look and style of the future, but then not just shooting the future in all these Dutch angles, because it does that, but in the past, like nothing is straightforward. Everything is off kilter. And it's representative, again, of Cole's uncertainty of where he's at and what to make of reality.
Right.
You know, I think this movie's really interesting from a time travel standpoint because characters might find themselves in a weird era that they're unfamiliar with.
Right.
But by and large, they still have control of their faculties.
Right.
The first time we see Cole in the past, he's just basically spitting up.
Yeah, he's like
hunched over on the floor.
Yeah.
In this mental hospital, he clearly has lost a big part of who he is.
Have you been a patient at County? Have I seen you someplace?
Not possible. I need to go. I'm supposed to be gathering information.
What kind of information?
Won't help you. Won't help anyone. Won't change anything.
James, Do you know why you're here?
Because I'm a good observer. A tough mind.
I see. You don't remember assaulting a police officer or several
Why
officers.
are they chained? Why are they chains on me?
You've been in an institution before, haven't you? A hospital.
No more questions now. Need to go. Need to go.
In prison, James?
Underground.
Hiding?
Love this air. Such wonderful air.
What's wonderful about the air, James?
Very fresh. No germs.
Yeah.
And is struggling to hold it together. And he never quite gets there. Even though he travels back and forth a few times, he can never quite engage in a way that would be, one, at the very least, socially acceptable in the era that he's in. Like, he always seems like a loon.
I'm not saying you're not mentally ill. For all I know, you're crazy as a loon.
But he doesn't seem like he can help himself.
Yeah. I do think that when he finally becomes lucid and decides that he wants to stay in 1996, and then at that point, when he decides he's not going back, he starts to talk about himself as being crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Internally saying, look, I'm not going back to that craziness that I don't believe is a reality any longer. Because in the future, he's apparently imprisoned for something.
This is it, James. What you've been working for. A full pardon.
I don't think it's ever...
Yeah, I don't think we ever know what.
Being violent, largely, I know has something to do with it, and I think that corresponds to the traumatic situation that he had as a child, seeing somebody gunned down in front of him like that, you know.
Sure.
Clearly affected by that, but he's offered a pardon to go and do this risky job, and by offer, I mean selected.
It's kind of like the Suicide Squad.
A little bit, yeah. He's volunteered.
You'll probably die, but if you don't, full pardon.
Full pardon.
A full pardon.
Exactly, yeah. So he gets volunteered to go up to the surface and brave this virus and kind of collect some animals or some samples from topside for scientists to study. And further, they decide to send him to the future, as you described in the synopsis. But the people that are making those decisions, like a panel of 8 or something.
Yeah.
Like all of those people are really weird too. You know?
They're all weird.
They act weird. They looked weird.
The panel of scientists, they seem like the panel that could be found in any similar movie. I'm thinking about something like The Cell.
Oh, with J-Lo?
J-Lo in it. Just like weird looking people.
That's around that same era, and I remember just about as much as I did 12 Monkeys. I think there's a guy that has a cape that's the size of the room. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
That's all I remember from The Cell.
So they look weird. They seem very aloof and distant, but they also seem a lot like the panel of doctors in 1990 that Frank Gorshin and Madeline Stowe's character are a part of, right?
Right. A lot of parallels there.
Like, it doesn't matter where this guy is in history, he has no control over his destiny.
Yeah. And he's being judged by people in white coats.
Yeah, just constantly. And all he wants is to be, I don't know, heard, respected, treated like a human being. I don't know.
5 billion people died in 1996 and 1997. Almost the entire population of the world. Only about 1% of us survived.
Are you going to save us, Mr. Cole?
How can I save you? This already happened. I can't save you. Nobody can. I am simply trying to gather information to help the people in the present trace the path of the virus.
We're not in the present now, Mr. Cole?
No. 1990 is the past. This already happened. That's what I'm trying to...
Mr. Cole, you believe 1996 is the present then? Is that it?
No, 1996 is the past too. Listen to me. What I need to do is make a telephone call. I can straighten this all out if I make a telephone call.
Who would you call? Who would straighten everything out?
The scientists. They'll want to know that they sent me to the wrong time.
Well, it turns out several of these people have been volunteered and shot through time. And as you also alluded to, they can't pinpoint exactly where they're supposed to be sending these people, so they miss the mark. Some people ended up in like ancient Greece or something.
Yeah, I love the doctor. The second time that they send Cole back, and he's like, "Oh, we're gonna get you. It's right 96, right on the money. Third quarter 96. That's where you're gonna end up."
Just relax now. Don't fight it. We're sending you to the third quarter of 1996, right on the money.
And then Cole immediately ends up in World War I.
Yeah.
It's like, that stuff is great.
Yeah.
But when we see Catherine again in 1996, she's taken her experience with Cole as a mental patient to heart and has started thinking, like, what if this crazy guy who's shown up is just part of a larger pattern of historical crazy dudes showing up and talking about the end of the world? And she is giving a lecture about the Cassandra complex, which is named after the Greek myth of Cassandra, who was given the gift of prophecy by Apollo and then cursed to not be believed by anyone after she rejected his romantic advances. So she is a soothsayer who is regarded as a crazy person. And she uses multiple examples from throughout history, and the implication, as you say, is that these are all people who came from the future and were trying to warn people about things to come.
About this same thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's this one event, this one viral attack.
The movie kind of brings it up and kind of drops it there, and it doesn't really spend too much time exploring the validity of that statement or the ramifications of it. All it leaves us with is the idea that, oh shit, maybe that guy who's ranting on the street corner is also a time traveler.
You're right.
Right? Is the street preacher also a time traveler? He seems to be. And I love that.
Yeah, and by the end of the movie, she's so convinced of it that she's even considering that the crazy person that pulled his teeth out might actually be a time traveler also.
Yeah.
And I think by his reaction, we determined that he's actually not.
He's just a crazy person.
Just a crazy person. But
it's a fine line.
And it's a lot of fun because she's giving this talk and she's saying stuff that's like right out of the History Channel documentary on Nostradamus. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, if you've ever seen these things, everybody's been interested in Nostradamus at one point or another.
Ancient Prophecies. Was it NBC had that show? Like David Niven was hosting or something. I can't remember who it was, but in the mid-90s, there were those Ancient Prophecy shows that were all about Nostradamus and Edgar Casey and all these guys that could kind of see the future.
Right, and you could twist things that actually happened just a little bit to match kind of these prophecies that Nostradamus maybe put out there, you know, like, oh, the world will be taken over by somebody named Hister. Oh, you meant Hitler? No, I said Hister, damn it.
Liberty will not be regained. It will be occupied by a black, proud, villainous, and unjust man. When the matter of the pontiff is opened, the Republic of Venice will be vexed by Dister.
But yeah, I mean, it had a very similar feel. Her book that she's writing felt like that was a lot of fun because, especially back then, I was like deep into that stuff, you know?
Oh, God. I obsessed over it. Which is probably one of the reasons I was so drawn to this movie when it came out, to be honest.
Could be, yeah.
Also drawn to her during this period is a mysterious doctor who shows up, played by none other than David Morse, who I forgot was in this movie completely, probably because he's a ginger.
And he's not in it very long.
No, Dr. Peters, played by David Morse, shows up at the lecture and book signing and is just all in, like, yeah, I agree with you. I think the soothsayers are the ones that know what's going on.
Right. Yeah.
And then he kind of fades away, you know, and then he pops up again a little bit later. And
when he's talking to her, he's kind of confessing to this thing that he's going to do, sort of. And she's just not listening, because...
Just very dismissive of it. It's just another fanboy. And of course, again, he's a ginger. So, I mean, she's like, okay, that's very nice. Thank you. Yeah. But he is David Morse.
He had a failed pilot for a TV show that I really tried to watch where he was like a crime-fighting cabbie.
Oh, wait, that's Hack.
Yeah.
Hack was the show. I watched I watched Hack. He was also Jodie Foster's father in Contact.
Oh, was he? Okay,
yeah,
I wouldn't have remembered that.
End.
It's like, honestly, the one thing I remember him from is a failed television show.
Hack.
Yeah, Hack. Yeah.
He was like a DC cabbie or something.
Yeah, he was a cab driver, and like he picks up somebody and gets involved in their life and then beats them up with a crowbar or something like that.
Yeah, I was always like, I would watch that show and I'd be like, David Morse, I want more for you.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure we're ever going to get it.
But, yeah.
Oh, but speaking of cameos, somebody who does show up in a cameo in this, who we did get a lot more of, and I had also forgotten was in this, Christopher fucking Maloney shows up.
Oh, yeah.
James Cole didn't start it. In fact, he saved me.
Funny thing, Doctor, maybe you can help explain it to me, being a psychiatrist and all. Why is it the kidnapped victims almost always try to tell us about the guys that grabbed them? And they try to make us understand how kind these bastards really were.
Yeah,
as Elliot
Stabler.
Not as Elliot Stabler, but he might as well have
been.
He
might as well have been. Yeah.
Lieutenant Jim Halperin with the police. But
Jim Halpert.
Like, oh my God. Not Jim Halpert. No. Jim Halperin. But Elliot Stabler.
Yeah,
like, to me, this is canonically the first appearance of Elliot Stabler.
Yeah, me too.
Like, if Detective Munch had shown up with him.
Homicide. I mean, that's for you.
Would have been game over for this. Like, this would be in my top 10 movies of all time.
It's not already?
Pretty high.
It's up there.
Let's be honest.
Yeah,
it's
this is a good movie.
But Christopher Maloney. Wow. How about that?
He's in it just a bit, just enough. An actor that has enough gravitas to like, hey, remember this guy? This is a character we're going to have to leave for a while and come back to.
Yeah.
And you don't want somebody that's just going to fade into the background. It'll be like, wait, did we meet this person earlier? What does he know already? It's like, oh, well, you had a whole 2-3 scenes with him earlier in the movie, and now you need to remember him. So, like, Christopher Maloney's a very memorable actor and perfect for that kind of thing.
Yeah. I don't want to gloss over, because we talked a lot about Brad Pitt, I don't want to gloss over Bruce Willis's performance in this movie.
Okay.
Which is, Bruce Willis spent half of his career just playing sort of the same character over and over again.
That is absolutely true.
And considering where he's at in his life now, I don't know. I see a movie like this and I just like, God, I want to reassess this whole thing, because he is so invested in this role. It seems like he just kind of loses himself in it, and it's like a McClane adjacent kind of role,
right? That's kind of my question for you would be, what would you consider Bruce Willis's most unique role? Because I feel like when you think about Bruce Willis, yes, he's good in this movie, but really he's just quiet and confused and angry. And that's kind of like his thing. That's his bread and butter.
Well,
I'm quiet,
I'm
confused.
That's definitely who he is now.
That's a very mean thing to say, Brian.
I'm sorry, guys. Maybe that's why I felt so bad about it.
No, you're not wrong. But at the same time, I feel like the trouble that Bruce Willis ended up having, we equated to laziness later in his career. And I think it was less about laziness and more about his struggles, and having to do smaller and smaller roles. It may seem like he's being fed his lines, and maybe he was being fed his lines, but not because he didn't want to try. So there's that side of it, but also going all the way back to like Unbreakable.
I was going to say Unbreakable.
The same kind of guy.
Yeah.
The Last Boy Scout.
Last Man Standing.
Crazy kind of Fifth Element.
Corbin Dallas. Yeah.
A little loose cannon. A little loose cannon-y. And then also just like somber and angry. And like that's kind of it for him. So he's good in it, but what is his most unique role?
God, would it
might
be
be
Sixth Sense?
Moonlighting.
Moonlighting is probably it, because he got a chance to do some comedic chops there. I was also thinking of The Whole 9 Yards.
Okay.
Where he also got to show off some comedic chops.
Yeah.
Those might be the real standouts. Like, to me, I think
Death Becomes Her.
That's another one, yeah. I think his best role ever is probably Unbreakable.
Really?
To me, I honestly think it is. I think it's...
You think that's his best performance?
Yeah, I would say probably. I think it's just really nuanced in a way that most of these aren't. But I think that his performance in 12 Monkeys is very, very good. It is Willis to me.
It is. It's a really weird situation because it's like...
It's almost amazing that he's in this movie. This type of movie, based on who Bruce Willis was and what his career trajectory was in like the early to mid 90s, this seems like a weird movie to just show up in when we're in between a Die Hard movie and Last Man Standing and Armageddon. You know, like all of these are happening around it.
Right. And then to just do this kind of weird Terry Gilliam movie in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird that Bruce Willis is in this movie. I don't know.
I guess, except Bruce Willis is one of the things I remember about the movie, so it's hard for me to separate.
Bruce Willis is 12 Monkeys.
Yeah. I don't know. It's okay to be that character.
Yeah.
He's very good in this, and there is a second layer to it where, he's kind of crazy, too. He's definitely putting forth an effort, and it's not just cop-out. The movie Cop-Out. Not a cop-out.
Yeah.
But...
So it's surprising that he's a lead in a Terry Gilliam movie, but it's not surprising that he's playing a character that is very much in line with Bruce Willis. Yeah, okay.
It is very in line with his filmography, for sure. Like when he played the head G.I. Joe guy in G.I. Joe.
Oh, yeah.
Also an old, quiet, angry person.
Yeah.
But
ever since he lost the hair, it's old and quiet and angry.
Solidarity, brother.
All right, so speaking of his character's tendencies in this movie, I do have one question, and maybe this was answered in the movie. I didn't catch it.
Okay.
And this is one of the unresolved elements in the movie. So there's a point at which Cole has Catherine out in the woods. She removes that bullet from his leg.
Yeah, World War I bullet. Yeah.
World War I bullet. This is an antique. And then he seems like he's going to do harm to her. And then the next thing we hear is that there's been a body found in the woods by a couple of hikers. And the news is immediately like, is it this doctor's body?
Right.
Nate, where did the body come from? Do we know? The news picked up that, it's this Catherine woman. Did it look like her?
I think that it's just circumstance. You know, people get killed. And they found a body and they wondered if it was her.
I'll tell you something. You lucked out. For a while, we thought you were a body they found downstate mutilated.
Her disappearing is a news story. So they're like constantly being searched for. It's the same thing with this other story that they talk about, the child that fell down the well.
The Ricky Newman story.
Ricky Newman, yeah. So many kids fell down wells in the 90s.
There's a hole in my heart as deep as a well for that poor little boy who's stuck halfway to hell.
Though we can't get him out, we'll do the next best thing.
We'll go on TV and sing, sing, sing.
And we're sending our love down the well. All the way down. We're sending our love down the well.
I'm Timmy O'Toole.
In reality, it happened once. Baby Jessica, I think.
Baby Jessica was down in the well, yeah.
Right, and like
it happened a lot on Lassie or those shows too, right? It was always like Timmy fell in the well or whatever. And then some kid actually fell in the well, and just like they always do, they made it so none of us could go to wells anymore. Like, you see any wells? When was the last time you guys saw a well? You know why? Because some stupid kid fell in a well one time, and now we don't get any of them.
Yeah, they all got boarded up. Now we all have to have indoor plumbing.
God damn it, kids.
No, but this story, this national story that they're touching on constantly throughout the movie, with all the different things that they're trying to do, including sending a monkey down the well with a roast beef sandwich.
Roast beef sandwich.
We'll meet you at the pickup area. Come on, Blip. Hang on tight.
I love the guy's like, hey, I think that monkey's going to eat the sandwich.
Yeah. And it's just interesting that they're like, oh, it's a monkey. Oh, maybe it's related to our 12 monkey story.
There are a lot of monkey red herrings in this movie. Like, there's so much monkey iconography in this film, but the biggest red herring is the well kid.
It's constantly there. It's constantly peppered in to where you're not going to forget about it, but you know that it's separate enough that it's like, why do they keep talking about this? And then the fact that he remembers it and tells his doctor about what the resolution of that story is going to be,
right,
is one of the major catalysts in her changing her mind about him. It's like, well,
realizing,
he's
not
knew
crazy.
This. Yeah, he knew the future.
He's dead, isn't he? That little boy.
He's fine. It was just a prank he and his friends pulled.
The dramatic attempt to rescue 9-year-old Ricky Newman from an abandoned mine shaft ended abruptly when playmates confessed that Newman's disappearance was merely a prank, and that in fact the missing child was hiding in a nearby barn.
I remember being very afraid for that little boy. All alone, down that well, not knowing if anybody's going to get him out. First time I was ever really afraid when I was a kid.
What do you mean when you were a kid?
Never mind. Just a prank, a hoax. That boy's hiding in a barn.
And even he tries to explain that away later when she's like, but you knew it was a hoax. You knew it was a joke. And he's like, yeah, but I'm sure I just kind of made that up.
Right.
And then no longer will she believe it, you know?
Yeah.
And I just thought that was a really great narrative device. Like a subplot almost.
Yeah, it is.
It's like the B plot in your movie, which I feel
because it's not even incidental anymore. It's brought up so much throughout and so explicitly. It's not like just TVs in the background talking about it. It's the radio station, and Cole is like, I don't want to listen to this.
Yeah.
And it's TVs in the hotel room, and they're looking at it and watching this story unfold.
Right.
It's not just incidental stuff happening in the background. This is an actual subplot in this film that has relevance.
Exactly. And her kidnapping is the other national story. So
Yeah.
I think when they found that body, I think they were just trying to like, maybe this is her. But I think it's unrelated.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Jose killed her. Let's just say Jose killed her.
Let's say
some other crazy time traveler.
There's plenty of them out there. So, talking about the time travel in this movie. The style of time travel we are working with here is closed loop time travel.
Yeah.
Right? Where what happened always happened. The events of this movie always unfolded precisely as they do here. Similar to the time travel of Time Crimes, where it's not like you have to time travel first to be able to instigate the events of the past. All of these events always happened.
Right.
The time travel was inevitable, and Cole has always been a part of 1990, and he's always been a part of 1996.
Right. This one, Time Crimes, the clock that went backwards.
Yep.
The thing I find interesting about this one, however, is that you may be able to say this about Time Crimes as well, but there's constant feeling that you could change this, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're rooting for your protagonists, your two main characters, to come to a resolution that does save the world. The idea is they're trying to stop him from releasing this germ by the end. Initially, it's just to try and protect the future by getting
He's just trying to do his job.
Yeah,
right.
And I think he even says, I can't change what's happened.
Are you going to save us, Mr. Cole? How can I save you? This already happened. I can't save you. Nobody can.
Yeah, when he's in 1990 and he's talking to that board of doctors, he's saying that the outbreak has already happened.
I can't do anything about it. Right.
There's nothing that can be done to change it.
Right.
Even though it's 6 years before the outbreak happens.
However, by the time Catherine is starting to change her mind about him, suddenly now that feels like something worth rooting for, and that they have a goal and they might actually be able to change things. Right?
And
so
yet,
even though it is technically a loop, and in the end, everything that happened will happen and has always happened, for most of the movie, you don't realize that.
Right. It's about gradually putting those threads together and getting to the point where the narrative coalesces and becomes that predetermined inevitability
right
of the incident at the airport, right?
Right. which constitutes Cole's dream, right?
Yes.
So he remembers this and he sees it over and over in his mind. So we know what's going to happen. And we see them start to put that together. Like the woman that chases after the man that was shot, she's got red hair. Well, it can't be Catherine. She's got brown hair, right?
Right.
But then, oh, well, I need to go get a wig because now we're hiding from the police, right?
The same thing Kim Novak does in Vertigo.
Right. Gets him a mustache and
that's
hair
great too. When he has to go to the bathroom to glue it back on, that mustache deserves its own subplot.
I guess my point is we as the audience can see these things being put into motion and all the while thinking, well, clearly they're going to stop this. Like, it can't possibly end the way that we've already seen it end.
Right. Even as they're at the airport and Dr. Peters is going through security. He's got the vials. You can see it in the suitcase. And they're trying to race around and maneuver and cut him off. There is a real feeling, even down to the last moments of the movie, that this can be altered.
Yeah.
The trajectory that we're on can be changed.
I really did think that at the last moment, he's going to recognize that, oh, all of these things are happening again. I know exactly how it plays out, so now I will not do that thing.
Right.
So you constantly think, oh, well, I know if I go running after him, I'm going to get shot, so maybe I won't do that.
Right, like he has the moment where he sees the 3 rank insignia pips.
The tractor beam will not be successful. I am decompressing the main shuttle bay.
And alters his...
Right, from rift, die, repeat.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and the added bit to that is when Jose shows up, because Cole leaves a message on the dry cleaning voicemail.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a seed that says, see, he can affect the future.
Right.
You're made to believe that Jose showing up is a new wrinkle.
Right. But it's not.
But it's not.
Because what ultimately happened is that they knew he was going to be there.
Right.
Whether they knew it well in advance or whether they just found out about it. In fact, that's Jose's response. 5 minutes ago, 30 years ago, they just put it together.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter when it was. You left the message, so we knew you were at this airport, and that's why we're here now.
Yeah, talk about this answering service that they had and the way that it was used by, one, by Willis, and two, by Catherine and her message.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, it's used 3 times during the movie.
Okay, I might be missing one, yeah.
Well, you're not. It's the time that it's not used. It's the time that in 1990 where Cole attempts to call the line, but it's just a woman with like 5 kids.
Yeah.
What are you doing in the doggone? Get out of here. Put those Doritos in there anyway. Yes. What? Voicemail? Look, I don't know what you... Will you please stop making all that noise? I don't know what you're talking about. Is this a joke? I don't know any scientists. Do I get out? James, who?
Wasn't who you expected?
No.
Yeah. And he's like, I guess the number's not set up yet. Well, he gets pulled back into the future, and they play part of a recording for him that he hasn't heard and we haven't heard yet that reveals, oh, the army of the 12 monkeys is behind the virus outbreak. We don't know where that voicemail came from, but that's what sets Cole into motion, looking for the army of the 12 monkeys, trying to find the virus sample. And I mean, I said before that there are red herrings in this. The actual biggest red herring in 12 monkeys is 12 monkeys.
Of the 12 monkeys.
Right?
Yeah.
That's it. That sort of loop that's caused by the message and then the future's perception of it and then Cole's mission is really what sets him looking after the 12 monkeys as though there's some genius, maniacal organization that's going to unleash chaos on the world when all they want to do is let some animals out of the zoo.
Yeah, right.
Which is pretty funny.
It's pretty funny to name your movie after your red herring.
Yes. But then Catherine shows up and says that she's the one who left the voicemail message, basically telling them, yes, it's the army of the 12 monkeys. This is where they're at. This is what they're doing. They're going to target this, this, and this.
Which she only knows about because he brought it to her attention.
Because he brought it to her attention, yeah. And in fact, the whole thing, if you believe what Jeffrey has to say about it, was Cole's idea to begin with in the mental hospital.
Right.
So would Peters have ultimately created this virus and gone to unleash it without Cole's involvement? Maybe, but I don't think it matters as far as the movie's concerned, because this is just all one big lump of events that have all kind of tangled up.
Yeah.
A nudo del tiempo, if you will.
Yes.
So, is time immutable? Can it be changed? Well, I think the movie ends, and this is another one of the elements of the movie that I really remembered vividly, with Peters on the plane and Dr. Jones beside him. So I think Dr. Jones's presence on the plane is more proof that history has to unfold the way it is. You can't change anything. And when she says that I'm Dr. Jones, I'm in insurance, what she's there to ensure is that, one, the virus gets released, and that she's able to secure a sample of it and take it back to the future. Ultimately, their plan has come to fruition. The virus will be unleashed.
It was already unleashed when...
The security guard.
Yeah, the security guard made him open his
smell,
bag.
see? Doesn't even smell.
Yeah, that was cold.
Yeah, gosh, you just feel so bad for him.
Yeah, it's diabolical.
So I think overall, the time travel in this movie seals up pretty airtight.
Yeah.
The one element that would cause any sort of doubt is the answering machine. And how that functions, whether you leave a message and it suddenly pops up in the future or whether it was always there. But Jose's line about, it doesn't matter whether it was 5 minutes ago or 30 years ago.
Well, yeah, without that voicemail that she leaves, he wouldn't have a phone number to call.
Right.
He shows up in 1990 saying, I've got a phone number I can call to leave a message for the future. But it's only because they've received messages from the future at that number.
Yeah.
So it's like this big circle, you know.
This is what gets complicated. This is where time travel gets its reputation for being very complicated.
Yeah, but that's what we like.
It's like there was no starting point where none of these events happened, and then all of a sudden someone traveled to the past and started changing things and instigating the event.
The name is Bell. Gabriel Bell.
Right.
The time travel was always just a part of it. And everything proceeded just as we saw it all the time. There is no alternate reality where none of this happened.
Living linearly through time, it's really hard.
Yeah, like some kind of plebeian, stupid linear living sons of guns.
Man, linear time. This is such a trip.
I mean, that's what makes it so fun to talk about, though, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
oh, yeah.
That's what we do this for. And there's so many ways to tell time travel stories that you can either completely lock in on your logic, or you can do Time Cop.
Right, yeah.
And just have some fun with it.
That's Time Cop's thing, because remember, Time Cop missed his entire kid's childhood.
Yeah. That's right.
But we all had fun, right? And Mia Sarah's still alive, so we're all having fun.
That's right. And that bad guy turned into a pile of pink goo.
Oh, man. Yeah, he did.
Yeah, there's just so many different types of stories that you can do. And the fact that this is one of the very first ones that jump to your mind when you're like, let's do a time travel podcast. Yeah, we could do 12 Monkeys.
That was one of the very first.
Very impactful.
Yeah.
Highly recommended if, obviously we've spoiled the crap out of it by now, but...
If you're a time travel fan and you haven't seen 12 Monkeys, what are you waiting for?
Right.
Just get there. There was a TV show that ran for a few seasons too, and I did not see any of that.
Neither did I. Was it any good? What does Rotten Tomatoes say?
I don't know.
Is it even on Rotten Tomatoes?
Ran for like 3 or 4 seasons, though. It must have been okay.
It's like on Showtime or something?
That sounds about right. 12 Monkeys. Oh, Sci-Fi. Terry Tallis was one of the showrunners on it. He was the showrunner for the 2nd and 3rd seasons of your favorite show, Star Trek Picard.
I was like, Graham Yost did Justified. What are you talking about? What's the word on the television series then?
6 out of 10. The nonsensical time travel in 12 Monkeys makes it less watchable than its original source material, but the high-quality execution and cool characters are top-notch. Okay. A- rating from AV Club. This is the 12th episode of the first season, maybe? Yeah. Was just heralded as one of the greatest things ever.
Really weird to make a television series out of this.
It is, especially calling it 12 Monkeys when we all know that 12 Monkeys is just a bunch of animal rights wackadoos. Worth noting also that Brad Pitt won Best Supporting Actor at the 53rd Annual Golden Globe Awards for this movie.
Well deserved.
Good for him. Yeah, very well deserved.
If you're gonna build a time machine into a car, why not do it with some style?
All right, so let's get into the time travel method.
I got to tell you, Brian, I like this one a lot.
I
like it a lot.
So this is the time travel mechanism in this. Looks like, you know those bags that you bake your turkey in?
Yeah, that's right.
It's like you get one of those bags, you hook a bunch of fucking wires into it, and then you put it on a bed, and you lift that bed up, and you kind of insert the bed into this blue vaginal orifice, and then you thrust the person into it, and then it spits them out.
It's like the thing that they kept E.T. in at the end of E.T.
One of those beds covered in plastic.
Yeah. So to me, their whole underground society is oddly dirty and disgusting when their whole thing is keeping everything sterile.
Yeah, because in the baggies, everything is sterile.
They put the time traveler into this plastic tube, just surrounded by a shower curtain or something, and then it just gets slid into a hole in the wall.
Like,
you get lifted up in the air and then slid into a hole in the wall.
This big blue circle, big blue hole.
And they don't take any time to explain anything about it.
No,
how it works.
It's like, thump, and you're just chucked in there.
It's just like, here's Terry Gilliam's idea for a time machine. And basically it's just all these like pulleys and wires that lift somebody up. And it's just like, it makes no sense.
There's so many components that seem extraneous. Like, did we really need to do that? Does he need to be 30 feet off the ground?
Right. I love it. I love how ridiculous it is.
What I love about this, most of all, is how janky it looks. It's just an absolute mess of wires and plastic.
Yeah.
And something about that screams authentic to me. Like, if this was a real thing, this is what it would look like. Just, we would look at it and be like, what a fucking mess.
Yeah. Nothing about it screams time travel to me, which you would think would make it score low. But for some reason, I just get such a kick out of what Terry Gilliam's imagination was doing here.
Yeah.
That I dig it a lot. Like I said, how it works is the least important thing to this story, right?
Well, they're putting him on this bed. He's got no clothes on.
He's got to be naked, apparently.
They're wrapping him in saran wrap, putting him inside one of those turkey bags. That's how it works.
And how does he get back? Like, when he comes back, he just disappears.
Yeah.
Right? Is it like a time limit?
He's just kind of retrieved and pulled back.
You're retrieved somehow. Yeah. I don't know. For me, it's really pretty great.
I can't think of another visual method of time travel that looks anything like this.
Right. Because this doesn't look like time travel.
No. It looks like an alien abduction.
Yeah, it does. Like I said, the end of E.T.
Yeah.
Yeah, the more I talk about it, the lower it seems like it should be on the list.
But no, but
I just like it so much.
I'm prepared to make a pretty bold statement on this.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
I would put it above my beloved Midnight in Paris car.
Oh. Interesting. Okay. So we're saying this thing's going to be in the upper echelon here. So starting from the top, going down, it's DeLorean, The Guardian at the City on the Edge of Forever, the Temporal Causality Loop from Cause and Effect,
okay,
Time Cop, Midnight in Paris, and then Chrononauts.
All right, so here's the thing. I feel like it belongs.
This list is jank, man.
I feel like it belongs. I feel like it belongs below Time Cop, but at the same time, it also feels very disrespectful to Terry Gilliam to put it below Time Cop.
Yeah, what I'm thinking is like,
Gilliam's a visionary, for Christ's sake.
no, I know.
It
I
should
don't
be higher
disagree.
than that.
My inclination is to almost put it exactly on par with Time Cop. Like if you were doing those tiers that people do on YouTube or whatever, like S
Tide.
tier, A tier. Oh, well, this is clearly a B tier
okay.
time. But we can't do that because we set up our rules.
Yes.
And if there's anything time travel does, it's stay with its rules, right?
Obviously. If we learn nothing else.
So I'm right there with you, like Midnight in Paris / Time Cop situation. Do you want to go over Time Cop? I mean, that Time Cop thing is fucking cool, man.
It is pretty cool. And a lot of the problems I have with the Time Cop device are replicated here.
Right.
Like, okay,
like
so
how
he
gets
traveled back in this thing, but then he doesn't need the vehicle to travel. It's like the exact same thing.
Yeah.
But one is just a bit more cavalier about it.
Yeah.
All right, I would put this just below Time Cop.
All right. Okay. I was about to put it over Time Cop, but Time Cop is so fucking cool, man.
Yeah, Time Cop's
the
pretty
bubble
rad,
thing
yeah.
and it like the rocket like piercing time. Yeah. Okay. So
it's cool. It's very cool. This one is more just like some sort of time travel syringe.
Yeah, it's so bizarre. I think it's okay to go under Time Cop because it's almost a throwaway scene. The time travel part, right? I mean, it's there and then they show it to you, but they don't ever say a damn thing about it. It's just like, whatever, he's time traveling. This is what it looks like. Okay.
Right.
On you go. So let me ask you this while I'm typing this up. Can you do a quick look and see like who the art director is on that movie? Who else may have had some vision for this future? Is it just like all Terry Gilliam's imagination, or are we leaving somebody out?
Surely not. Design. All right, art department. The art department made sure that the 2035 underground world only used pre-1996 technology to depict the bleakness of the future. Gilliam, Beecroft, and set decorator Crispian Salas went to several flea markets and salvage warehouses looking for materials to decorate the sets. Majority of visual effects sequences were created by the Peerless Camera Company, which Gilliam founded in the late 70s with Kent Houston, the film's visual effects supervisor. He had his hands over all of it, but
oh yeah, had his hands in everything.
Yeah, pretty neat.
It is cool. Okay, so here's another interesting thing about tonight. You are supposed to be revealing to me what we are going to watch, read, or listen to for Christmas.
Yes. Oh man. All right, I'm very excited.
Keeping me on the edge of my seat over here for this.
I am.
And said that you wanted to tell me on the air.
Yeah, I've been very cagey about this. Nate, what's the first thing you think of when you hear the word Christmas?
A Christmas Carol?
Exactly. Hallmark original movies.
Okay.
So, there's good news and bad news. The bad news is that in order to watch the next episode, you are going to have to download another app.
Oh, no.
The good news is that there is a trial period, so you won't have to pay for it. And what you're going to get to watch is the 2020 Hallmark original, A Timeless Christmas, in which an early 20th century time traveler comes to the year 2020 to experience a 21st century Christmas. Hallmark original movie for the holidays, Nate.
Brian, have you seen this movie?
I have not. All I can tell you is that this movie explicitly involves a character traveling to Christmas of 2020 to experience a 21st century Christmas. Nate, do you remember Christmas of 2020?
I do.
We were still very deep in the throes of COVID-19. So, perfect Christmas for this 19th century dude to show up.
2020 was the one year that I didn't travel home for Christmas because of COVID. We had to stay indoors for Christmas. That's
Hallmark has your back because they were ready for Christmas.
When did this movie get
year.
made? 2020?
2020, yeah. Yeah, it came out in 2020.
So they're not going to mention COVID.
I mean, it's a Hallmark original. It's supposed to be heartwarming. A Timeless Christmas, the Hallmark original. This is streaming on the Hallmark Plus app. Yes,
Jesus,
you
really?
heard me. Hallmark Plus. Anyway,
Timeless Christmas.
Timeless Christmas. Check it out. Report back in 2 weeks for our Christmas episode. Got Nate. I cannot wait for this.
All right, so when we watch this...
This is going to be the highest listens we've ever had. Oh boy, it's a Hallmark original podcast.
Well, tune in for that,
Total pivot after this next one. Well, folks, thanks for listening. As always, make sure you subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app. Leave us reviews where you can. Positive reviews. I don't want any of that slander. You can take that somewhere else.
Wait for the Hallmark Christmas to give us the bad review.
No, you're going to love it. You're going to love it.
It is much more fun to hate things.
Give us... you're assuming this is going to be bad. I don't know where you're getting that from. ohboyqlpod@gmail.com. That's the email address. Let us know what you think of the current episode. Give us ideas for upcoming episodes. Any time travel stories you want us to cover. Did you watch that 12 Monkeys TV show? How was that?
Nobody watched that.
Oh, somebody must have.
That does remind me, though. We did get a recommendation in the email.
Oh, boy.
Hold on one second. From Jeff Richardson, he had a recommendation on a movie called My Old Ass on Amazon Prime.
Oh, we should watch that.
Have you seen it?
No, but it's got my hall pass in it. Aubrey Plaza. Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, Aubrey Plaza goes back in time to warn her young self about something.
Yeah, about something.
That's how he describes it.
Oh, I like that.
He says it's really, really good. He'd like us to cover it. So in the new year, add it to your list if it's not already there.
All about some Aubrey Plaza. Find us on social media. I am at Captain Burns, CaptnBern on Blue Sky, and Brian.Lee.Martin on Instagram and Threads.
And I am at Action Nate on both Blue Sky and Threads.
Wonderful, wonderful. You can also find my LinkedIn. and I don't know. Got any good, lucrative gigs? Maybe you're trying to set up one last big score. Find my LinkedIn. I might be able to offer some help there. Anyway, guys.
It's a bank robber?
I don't know. Scores can be all sorts of things.
What's the bit you're doing here, Brian?
I don't know. I'm just trying to get a job. Thanks for listening, folks. Until next time, I'm Brian.
And I'm Nate.
And we'll see you in the future.
You people don't exist. You're not real. You can't travel back in time. Whoop. You're not here. You can't trick me. You're in my mind. I am insane. And you are my insanity.
Reese Witherspoon?
The Reese Witherspoon Ghost movie. Like, I do not know what you're fucking talking about, and that is just unendingly hilarious to me.
I don't remember what it's called.
And then it turns out she's not a ghost. What the fuck? Like, couldn't she have just opened a door and figured that out?
Look, Mark Ruffalo moves into a new apartment. Okay? And turns out it's inhabited by a ghost.
Okay.
And the ghost is Reese Witherspoon, and she doesn't know that she's dead.
Oh, so it's like kind of like The Sixth Sense, only not dark.
Maybe. So they start to have a relationship as he tries to explain to her that she's dead and how to deal with that. He starts to make it his living space and not hers.
Oh.
He's like a gardener or some shit. And then they start to have a relationship and have feelings for one another. And then they discover she's not dead and that she's alive in the hospital somewhere. And so then they have to hatch a plan to actually get themselves together. And if I remember, he probably has a girlfriend that isn't right for him or something.
They always do.
Because that's how that works.
They always do.
But it's been a long time.
All right, well. Maybe one day I'll find out what the hell that movie's called.
It's almost like the information might be right at your fingertips.
It might almost be like I have a tab open on the Internet Movie Database right now.
Don't look for
Not
it. The
even
mystery
doing it.
is
I'm just
better.
going to keep Brian Pavey's profile up, and he appeared in the music video for Christina Aguilera's Your Body.